Hey, everybody. On the Run with Beards and Dunn is back. And unfortunately, it's just On the Run with Dunn because Beards is still hurting. He had knee surgery recently and he's just under the weather and he's got some more medical issues coming up down the road. And so he sends his best wishes to everybody. But he said, go ahead. And we had talked about who should we have on a podcast. And I'm kind of embarrassed because this guy should have been on, a long time ago. And our guest today with me is Randy Fischer. And if you're from South Dakota or know anything about running, you know who Randy Fischer is. I mean, if they ever have a Hall of Fame for distance runners in South Dakota, Randy's a first ballot entry. He'll be on the charter group because his history as a distance runner in South Dakota goes back and is outstanding. And Randy and I have a common bond in that we were college roommates for 3 years, and we lived together in the same dorm room. He got a scholarship. I didn't get my scholarship my first year. I kind of was a walk-on. I had a lot of financial aid because my dad was disabled, but I'm kind of proud Jay gave me a room after our first year because I had a good freshman year, and so we stayed in the dorm because it was affordable. we were getting it paid for by the college. But Randy and I met in Randy, I hate to go, but I remember at a Lincoln track meet in Sioux Falls, Rich Greeno used to put on developmental track meets. And I showed up there probably in 1972, maybe 73. And you were there. I didn't know you, but you saw me and I was wearing a Lennox t-shirt, Lennox track shirt. And you came up to me. I don't know if you remember this. You go, "Hey, you're from Lennox?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And you go, "Are you Laurent Clark?" Because you knew Laurent was a pretty good runner. Laurent was like a 4:35 miler in high school. And you were kind of scoping out the competition because we were there for this track meet. And you just knew that there was a kid from Lennox that was decent. And I said, no, my name is Mike Dunlap. And he goes, "Oh, great to meet you." And all I remember is you were so nice and friendly. And after we ran, and I know you spanked me, like in the mile, you said, "Hey, do you want to go for a cool down run?" And, I don't know about you, Randy, but, I think in school, we're always looking for an acceptance and to be, part of the group and when somebody like you, who was a good runner to me, invited me to go for a cool down run, I felt honored. And we did. We went for a couple mile cool down run around Lincoln High School. I don't know if you remember any of this at all, but we kept showing up week after week after week for those Lincoln track meets. And then we met up in cross country because we were in the same region. I remember my junior year, you were a senior and you pretty much won every race that year, I think, except the state meet. You finished second. I remember that. And you won the region and I finished second. I was like 11 seconds behind you. I couldn't even see you, but I was tickled pink because I figured, well, the best I can do today is get second because I knew, going up against you was a tall order. And I was pumped because you won the regional and I got second. And you were a really good friend of mine at that point. And then, when I was finishing up my senior year of high school, I was going to go to South Dakota State, and it didn't take long for me. And I didn't remember the conversation, but I said, "Geez, Randy, we decided to be roommates because we got along so well and we both had the same goals." And so I'm going to quit talking here because I could go on for about 45 minutes of just all the good times I've had with you over the years. If we had $1 for every mile we ran together, Randy, we would have retired years ago because we trained a lot and being roommates, we trained together and we had the same schedule and all that. But I'm going to back up a little bit here and go, I don't know your history as far as how did you start? What year did you go out for cross country or track? And were you any good right from out of the gate? I don't remember any of that.
Well, Mike, it's kind of a long story, but I can keep it short.
Go
But
for it. We love
anyway,
stories.
I want to back up. I remember going to all these summer meets, and my high school coach, Gene Danielson, him and your coach, Gene Borman,
Gene Borman.
good friends back in the day, and both built really solid programs back at Lennox for Borman and over at Salem for Gene Danielson. But anyway, um, going to those meets, I remember those like it was yesterday.
Me too.
And I remember meeting you, and after that, we got together. We were friends forever,
Yep.
and we look forward to going. And we didn't always win every race there, but we were both kind of competitive, and we had like to have fun. And we met a lot of good friends through the years, and it was awesome. Like the Bills brothers, and we ended up running with them at South Dakota State later too. So we had a lot of fun. But anyway, backing up, when I was at middle school, I earned up through seventh, eighth grade. I thought I was a sprinter. I was always kind of the runner up on all the relays, and they moved me up to the quarter mile, and so I wasn't a bad quarter miler, but I wasn't lights out, you know. So, but I was the best in my class because nobody wanted to run that. Well,
It's a
when we
tough
get to high
race.
school, I'll keep it short here. Get to ninth grade, and I was about as good a quarter miler as there was on our track team. We weren't great. I only ran like a 58, which isn't blazing. And anyway, I asked the coach. I said, Danielson, can I run the 4x4 at region? I'd do anything, or a conference, anything to get a medal someday, a meet
Right.
like that. And so, anyway, he said, well, we've got some juniors and seniors that can run that. I said, the only event that I have open is the 2 mile. And I said, are you kidding me? That I've never run anything over a half mile or over a quarter mile,
Yeah.
and he said, well,
Take
uh,
it or leave it.
we got a meet next week. You can try a half, and let's see how that goes. And so I jumped in the half, and this next meet, and I ran 2:43, and I thought, well, that wasn't so bad. But little I know, I was terrible for a guy, you know. So he said, okay, all right, throw me in the 2 mile. I'll try it. I just wanted to get out of school for one thing, and I'd get a chance to run at the meet. Well, anyway, we get and all my buddies, my best friends at Kenny Johnson, Raleigh Weber were distance runners, and I really envied them because I thought they were really good because they could run that far. So anyway, jumped in the meet, and I had no idea. I just went out with a leader at the conference meet, and this Holford kid from Bridgewater, he was like a junior, 6'3", and here I was about 5'5". And I tried to run with him, and we went back and forth through about 6 laps, and then he pulled away the last couple laps, and then I ended up getting runner-up, get second conference. And
Wow.
so um, that's kind of how I fell into distance running, because I beat my buddies, which I was pretty surprised. And anyway, then Danielson said, well, let's do it at region. So I ran 11:12.1 my first time on that two
Cool.
mile, and then at region I ran 11:11.9. So very consistent, but not fast. And anyway, after that I kind of got put in the distance because, like I said, I wasn't any of the sprint teams because I wasn't that as fast. But that's kind of how it started. And then my sophomore year, I went out for football and cross country, and didn't run state, but I ran a couple meets and did okay in them. And then my junior year, I was still out for football and cross country, and I ended up, I think I got 18th at state and cross, and in football I was so. But then my senior year, I decided I'm just going to run because I'm an okay football player, but I'm not that good. But anyway, I went out and had a lot of fun there, and met guys like you and the Bills and Larry Beasley and a lot of people, a lot of history there that we
Oh,
have, and a lot of really good athletes through South Dakota. And anyway, I think my senior year, you and I went to the Jack 15. I don't seems like
yes.
we
Yeah, I was
ran
a
that.
junior. You were a senior.
Yeah.
Oh man, that 50-mile road race. I'd never gone that far in my life. I don't know if you'd ever run that
No,
far
oh no,
before.
no, no. I'd never run over. I was only Mike. I hardly ran that many miles. I ran 2 miles a day in the summer, even before my senior year. I had no idea because I thought, well, that's a long way, and so everybody thought I was crazy for outrunning. I thought, well, later you find out that's hardly running. Um, but but anyway, but my senior year, developed. I got second in the state meet, like you say. I
Yeah.
had a decent year, and then in the 2 mile, I broke the state meet record in the 2 mile. I ran
Yeah, you went from
9:30.
11 minutes then down to 9:36. I think you set a new state record when you won that year.
The state meet record.
Yeah,
Yep,
state
yep,
meet record, right?
yep. And Howard Wood, I think I ran 9:28 for the 2 mile, and
Was that
which wasn't
when
bad.
Larry Beasley ran like 9:22 that night?
He did, and then
Yeah.
Mike Bills, him and I
Yeah.
came in at 9:28. So
Wow.
and he got me, but he always had a little more speed than me,
Well, those
obviously.
Bills boys are fast.
They were fast,
They had leg speed.
but they were great guys, great guys. A lot of great relationships, a lot of friends we made over the years, and then we moved on and ended up going up to South Dakota State because I kind of got addicted to running. And be honest, truth be told, I don't know if I would have went to college, it wouldn't have been for running. I kind
Me
of figured
too.
out a major once I got
Yeah.
up there, and with friends like you and all the people that we met along the way,
Oh.
it was just such a journey and so many memories, and you can't take those away. It's been so much fun meeting guys like you, and then eventually down the road, Dick. Talk about salty earth people. We just had so much fun. We had so much in common, and we could talk all day about running, which a lot of people wouldn't care, but we did. We loved it.
We would sit in the dorm room. I think I had a box full of Runner's Worlds, and it always made Mike and Mark Bills mad because they were not they worked at school, and I would sit there and read running magazines. I was a PE major.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think you had to study. You were in econ, if I remember right.
Yep.
But we would sit there and go through and just talk running. And I think the Bills got sick of it after a while.
Oh yeah, I know.
Hearing us talk running all the time. But I want to back up. When you ended up winning the state track, and then did Jay Dirksen? Did you get recruited? I assume you did.
I did. He was at the state meet, and he talked to me, and he said, "Oh, why don't you come up for a visit? We'd really be interested in you." Because truth be told, the year before they won the national cross meet.
Correct. Yeah.
So they didn't really need many runners, but and there weren't. My class wasn't the strongest class for distance at that time. We had some decent ones, but So I did come up there, and I got recruited by some other schools too.
Yeah,
but
I was going to ask that.
I thought I wanted to go to a bigger school where there's competition, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what you did too.
Well, I think you were kind of like me. You wanted to run with the best.
Yep.
Because if you were going to get better, you got to play somebody, in sports, if you want to get better, play somebody better than you.
Right.
You got to raise your game and do and so, yeah, you and I were two peas in a pod, I think, as far as mindset.
Yep.
I went there to run, and I remember, it's kind of, I'm not proud of that. College is a unique opportunity that people, if you get the opportunity, it's like, that's take advantage of it, and yet at the same time, when you're 18, 19 years old, your priorities,
right.
I might have I might have done a different major looking back, but wouldn't have changed a thing. And, Randy and I could just, morning runs, we did morning runs all through college. We did 20 milers every Sunday. And I went home a lot. And I think you did, sitting in the dorm on weekends could be kind of boring unless you had schoolwork to do. And I would go to Salem with you occasionally because you would invite me. And
for sure.
I can remember once us doing a 20 miler and we weren't really sure of the distance. I don't know if this rings a bell to you or not. Yeah. We ran towards Montrose, and I don't blame you at all. It's like, I think if we, how do you count all those miles, section lines? But I think it was a 23 miler.
Yeah,
we got done.
It was.
Yeah, because I thought, damn it, we only had to do 20.
Yeah.
I think Fisher made me run 3 more miles.
Yeah. No.
But we were, and that didn't bother. I kind of was excited that we'd done it, because we did it kind of by accident.
It was, but like you say, it was one of those things that we had a lot of fun, and and we always seemed to go a little faster when we needed to because we got talking and we get excited about it. And
the motivation.
We're feeling so good. Let's just keep going.
Well, let's talk marathons because Randy, I'm going to ask you here in a bit how many, your career as a marathoner is, second to none. Your first, I'm going to brag a little bit. I ran my first marathon and you didn't. And when I was 18 in 1975, I went up down to Topeka, Kansas with Pat Tobin and I can't remember who else made the trip. I think I can't remember if Sue Thomas went with us that year or the next year. But then the next year, you said, I said, I'm going to go back to Topeka and run that marathon again. And I don't know why, but you said, maybe because I was so excited and was bragging about it all the time. And,
yeah.
And you said, I'm going to come with you. And I said, awesome. I was excited because we drove down there, I think with Tim Huber's car or something like that.
Yeah,
and we ran the marathon and you and I, it was your first. It was my second, but I had run that course the year before. It was 4 laps around Lake Shawnee down in Topeka, Kansas, 6.5 miles each lap. Ended up being 26.2 miles.
Yep.
And we were smart enough. And I actually kept the splits. If you ever want them, I've got them written down somewhere. We ran each lap just a little faster than the lap before. So we we negative split that marathon, which is kind of a smart way. Start easy, pick up.
That was a tough course. It was hilly.
It was. And with 6 miles to go, I don't know if you remember this, but we came around the start finish line, 6.5 miles to go. And we asked, and the guy said, you guys are second and third. The first place guy's 3 minutes ahead of you. And I remember, I think I turned to you and go, well, we'll never catch him. I mean, we only have 6 miles and he's 3 minutes ahead of us. And I remember you and I were just running along, but once you get past 20, you never know what's going to happen. And so we were kind of just not talking as much, saving our energy. And I remember we came around a corner and we saw a runner up ahead and neither one of us said anything. And we passed the runner. And I think you or one of us turned to the other and go, was that the leader? Because there wasn't like a big time race where people were telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think I said, well, I think it might have been, because I don't know if we could have been lapping people by now, but it was a guy from an Indian school down in Kansas somewhere.
Yeah.
And he'd went out fast, and
man.
he paid the price. Well, you and I came in together, 2:29:20. I'll never forget it.
No, like
the grins on our faces, and I'm going to put a photo up. And I think you've seen the photo with you and me with our arms around each other.
Yep.
I think you're holding me up, actually.
Well, I think we're holding each other up. I don't know. It was
but fun. The smiles on our faces, and people always go, why in the world would anybody want to run a marathon and stuff? That feeling, Randy, I don't know. That one, I'm goosebumps right now, remember, and we were so excited. We could not wait to get back to Brookings. I remember Monday that we went to see Jay, our coach. Yeah, how'd you guys doing? Yeah, we Randy, I don't know if you were standing. We were in the room together.
Oh, for sure.
And we said we tied for first. We won it. We ran 2:29:20, and Jay looked us both in the eyes. And I remember this clear as day, and he goes, "You're both going to break 2:20 someday." And you could have knocked me over with a feather when Jay said that, because in my mind, Randy, I don't know about you, but 2:29 was pretty damn tough.
Well,
and to run 10 minutes faster just seemed like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But it planted the seed in the back of my head. I don't know about yourself.
For sure.
And Jay, we respected Jay. I mean, Jay had, Jay's a unique character, and I appreciated him as a coach. I think he had some unique coaching strategies and techniques, and I think he used a little mind games on us sometimes. Now I can see it, but at the time you just kind of wondered what was going on.
Yeah.
But I was really, words have power, and when he said that to both of us, and I'm just going to jump ahead. We both did break 2:20 later in our careers.
Yep.
And so I got to give Jay, he knows what he's talking about.
He does.
And so that kind of, I think after that marathon, I think I was already hooked.
Oh, there's definitely, I was too. I mean, after that, we were doing a lot of 100-mile weeks. So
that's
what we
the
were
thing.
doing,
Jay,
it got us ready.
We were trained, and I know Jay's talked to Mike and Mark Bills. I haven't seen Jay for years. I had a chance to chat with him. But he actually admitted to Mike and Mark Bills, I heard at like a reunion, he said, I think I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he kind of like, I might have overworked you guys. We were 18, 19 years old, and we were knocking out them 100-mile weeks, 20-mile runs.
Yep.
And, I didn't mind doing it. And I know you sure didn't mind doing it. No,
we got addicted and we loved it.
We loved it.
Guilty if we weren't doing it.
And maybe a little more temperance I had a lot of injury issues, and I think you had some health issues in your college career that maybe we didn't reach our full potential because of some of that. I could get through the summer and fall, but man, when winter hit, and I don't know if it's the icy roads, Randy, you and I can chat about that, about cold weather, slippery conditions, and we're still out there trying to do what we did in the summer.
Right.
And we didn't have I hate the word judgment, to kind of realize maybe we need to, we didn't have treadmills in those days. Wouldn't it have been nice if we could have said, hey, man, it's blizzarding out. Let's go over to the Hyper Center and jump on a treadmill and do our 5-mile, 8-mile, whatever we had to do that night.
Yeah.
But instead, we bundled up, tried to follow each other's footsteps in the snow and
through the snowbanks and whatever it was. Hey, backing up, I did.
Go ahead.
I did see Jay and Lyle Clausen at Bob's funeral.
Oh, I sure would have given anything to have been able to get there, but
I seen Jay and he's doing good.
He had some health issues. He had a bypass surgery, and he's retired now.
Yeah, so. It was a quadruple one or something, wasn't it?
Well, if you have 1 or 10,
but he was down in Nebraska, and I know he retired after that happened. He retired, and he's down in Arkansas.
Mentioning Lyle Clausen, when you and I ran that Jack 15, I think Lyle shepherded me. I remember you pulled away towards the end. I think you beat Lyle and I, but Lyle and I came in together. Like, I think you finished 5th. We might have got tied for 6th or something at the Jack that year. But Lyle was such a good buddy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
He was a coach. Still, I don't know if he's finally retired from that, but what a mentor, and and I can't speak enough about Lyle Clausen as far as his love of running. Went on to run a 2:22 marathon himself.
Won the St. Louis Marathon. St. Louis.
Yes. Yeah. And so, like you said, some of the relationships and characters that we had to meet. A real quick story, Randy, I'm going to get back to your career. You remember the time that it was blizzarding, and we always hoped college school would get called off because then we could sleep in the morning. You didn't have to go to classes. I mean, it's kind of like a free day. It's like a vacation day.
Oh, for
And
sure.
we were sitting up at night. Usually we were in bed about 10 o'clock, but it was blizzarding. And I think we were all kind of sitting around the Bills. Everybody was waiting to hear if the announcement was coming on that school was going to be canceled next day. I mean, it was nasty out. And they did. They pulled the plug. They said, hey, college classes are going to be canceled at South Dakota State University tomorrow. And I think a cheer went up through the dorm. And you and I were sitting there and we looked at each other. And we said, well, why don't we just go do our 5-miler? It was like midnight and we don't have to do it tomorrow. And you said, yeah, okay, let's do it. You and I bundled up. We went out and ran 5 miles in a blizzard. Now, I know you're going to, and we came back and the Bills boys like, hey, what's going on? And we go, we decided to go do our 5-miler. So we don't, and they got their stuff on and they went out and did it.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. That's how our mindset and theirs, I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but we were that driven and competitive.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't want anybody to get like that one run is going to make all the difference in the world.
Right.
But the fact that we went out and did it, I remember that. And I admire them. They went back to the room and said, screw those guys. We're going to get our stuff on and we're going to go do a 5-mile run.
Oh, yeah.
Because we knew in the morning the snow was going to be freaking who knows how deep. And it would have been miserable. And what, the mindset that it takes to, I guess, to kind of get the best out of yourself is, we were talking, Dick and Greg Meyer, I like dropping these names, Randy, because I get to meet. Greg Meyer said, coming from the Midwest, because he was out of Michigan, he said, every day in the winter is a decision. Yeah. Am I going to run today or not? And the guys that go places say, yeah, I'm going to go run, where a lot of guys say, weather's too crappy out, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I'm not saying, you can get hurt out there in bad weather, but I think that mental tenacity that you had, I think the Bills had it.
Yep.
We tried to get the best out of ourselves. You had a great career. You were All-American, and a lot of people forget that. You were an All-American steeplechaser. I think your PR was like 9:16, if I remember right.
Yeah, and normally on those, Mike, as you remember, most of our tracks were those nice rubber mud water jumps, so you'd get your foot stuck in there once in a while.
Oh, my gosh. They were like mud pits. And the fact that, I did one steeplechase, I think, in my life, my senior year. I ran 9:52, Randy. I don't know if you knew that. And I got a whole new appreciation for steeplechasers. It's bad enough to run a hard 2-mile or 3,000 meter metric equivalent.
Yeah.
Now throw in some of these, I almost said a bad word there, barriers, and that dang water jump.
Oh, I know.
I admire. I think you're masochistic but maybe that's why you kept running marathons, but All-American in the steeplechase. And then you were on the national team that your freshman year that finished second in the nation.
Yes.
And then your senior year, my junior year, we again finished second.
We did.
In between there, we had a 9th, I think, at Irvine, and then we had a 5th at St. Louis.
That's right. Yeah.
So you bookended your career with 2 runner-up national, and there's no shame in that. When you get beat by a better team,
we had a lot of fun, but we had to rebuild a little bit. That year I was a freshman. We had Gary Bentley and Jeff Herman, Kyle Wold. We had some all-stars, all-Americans that were really tough.
Really good
Doug
runners.
Garrett, Steve Palm, Jim Trigo. I mean, there was Terry Stewart. We had some really good runners on that team, and it was a lot of fun.
I'm going to brag a little bit. When I came and the Bills came, and then Mark Hillstrom made our varsity, we had 4 freshmen. You were a sophomore.
Yep.
We had Jeff Herman and Pat Tobin, I think might have been our senior. And so we had 7 guys. We had 4 freshmen and you as a sophomore. Right. So I guess upperclassmen, I don't know if that's a junior, senior year. We only had 2.
Yeah.
And we retrained our butts off.
Oh, yeah.
And right before the conference meet, and I don't know if it's true or not, but Jay came to us and said, they're not going to send, because we didn't have to qualify for nationals. You went to the national meet. That was it. It was in Irvine, California.
Right.
And Jay came to us and said, Stan Marshall was still alive then, was the athletic director.
Yep.
And I don't know if this is true, if it was just psychology, but Jay said, the athletic department says, the cost to send the cross-country team all the way out to Irvine, California for the national meet, airfare, hotels, food, what have you.
For sure.
Is prohibited. It's a lot of money, and cross-country isn't a profit center sport. It's not like we're paying our own way. And he said the fact that we have such an underclassman heavy team, they didn't foresee us doing well at nationals. Just too many freshmen, Randy's a sophomore and then 1 junior, 1 senior. We just don't see it, maybe being of value to South Dakota State to send the team unless they win the North Central Conference meet, which would kind of
Right.
prove.
Right.
And I don't know about you, Randy, but they might as well have injected me with adrenaline or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that, because we went up to Fargo then
Yep.
for the conference meet, and Bob Bartley was there. Gary Bentley drove up. I think Doug Garrett's in that bunch. They got in a car to come up to support us. And I know you and Mike Bills were right up there. I think Warren Idy and Mike Bowman might have got first, second. I think you and Mike were third, fourth at the conference.
I think Pat Kane
Okay, might have
from
slipped in there.
USD was up there. And I'm trying to think what Bowman. I don't think that something happened in North Dakota State that week where they didn't have their bestest
I
race.
think they had some disciplinary
I
issues.
think
or
so. I
something.
think Warren won it, and I think
Yeah.
Bowman was right behind Mike and I.
Okay, and then Mark and I were like 9th and 10th.
You guys ran phenomenal too.
We did. I ran probably my best race of the year.
Oh, for sure.
And I just remember I finished and went through the chute, and Jay, I never forget this. He picked me up like a little freaking rag doll under my arms and swung me around in a circle.
Yeah.
If he'd have let go of me, I would have flown off into space. I mean, he was ecstatic.
Oh yeah.
He was so pumped because I think USD was kind of a heavy favorite, but they had some injury issues.
Because they beat us in the duel by, I think, a point.
Yeah, they beat us in the duel, and so that's another reason I think the athletic department was a little down on sending us. Well, we got to go to nationals, and it was a hot, steamy day. I didn't run very well. I can't remember how you did there.
I was All-American until mile 4.
Oh,
I think we went. Was it a 5-miler there, Mike?
Yeah,
but I was way up there, and it was 90 degrees.
Oh, it was humid too, about 90%. I remember the fog before the race started, the humidity in the air.
Oh yeah.
I looked.
I didn't finish well either, and I remember after that, I think we went to Disneyland, and we were both sitting there. Oh, this is a lot of fun.
It is. We had to. Well, I just remember, and it was a hurt unit. It was hot and humid, and I know Mike Bills was up there with you, and he fell out of All-American place as well. He didn't miss it by a lot.
No, he didn't. He did 27th or something.
Yeah,
27, 28,
he would have been a 4-time All-American if he would have just been able to.
Incredible effort. He ran phenomenal.
We had 9th, and I think I just remembered we were warming up at Irvine. They had the Anteaters. What a mascot for a team. Irvine, Cal Poly Anteaters. And they had this anteater with his tongue out, and stuck on it were these little ants, like 3 of them, and they had the names of the teams in SDSU. Like we were one of the teams they were watching out for because of the history.
Of course.
The last 2 or 3 years with went the champion, the runner up and stuff.
Yep.
But I think going to Disneyland was a lot of fun. As a team, we went to the ocean. I'd never seen the ocean before. I don't know if you had ever been to the ocean before.
No.
And so we were all afraid to get in past our knees because I think the movie Jaws might have been out then. I don't know.
Right.
And then, Randy, I'd never been to Mount Rushmore until we went out to Black Hills State University cross country. And Jay, which I think for some of you, we got into this cross country meet on a Saturday morning and we won. I think we perfect scored them. I think.
Oh, did we go tied?
1, 2, 3, 4. You guys came in together. I was by myself, I think, in 5th place, and you and the Bills and Jeff Herman, if I remember correctly. Or maybe that was the next year, but we perfect scored them. And typically it's like, okay, get in the car and let's head back to Brookings. And Mike and Mark Bills and me and I said, we've never been to Mount Rushmore. And Jay's like, he just looked for an excuse to drive. We're going to Mount Rushmore. And we didn't get home then that Saturday. We didn't even get to Outer Rapid City till like freaking late in the afternoon, early evening. So we got home at like 2, 3 in the morning.
Right.
Jay got a speeding ticket like usual, if I remember right.
Well, yeah. If the cops could catch him, it was okay.
Now, any of us get together, this is kind of what happens. We just start going down memory lane. But now graduation came, and I know you moved to Sioux Falls, had taken a job, I can't remember where, at a bank or something, because you were an econ major. And you pretty much got the eye of the tiger as far as training. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah, I do.
What kind of, mileage? I was looking through your history, Randy, and I know in 1979, you went up to Grandma's and ran 2:21 and got sixth place overall.
Yep.
And so, what kind of training what was a typical week like for you?
Well, back in the day, I think I went with you and Dick. We went to, back step a little bit here. We went to that 15-miler in Kansas City, And
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
I
yes.
I think Dick won. You were up there in third.
I
I
got
think it was
third. You
10th.
got ninth or 10th. Yeah, we were top 10, all of
And
us.
we
Yeah.
we did good. And I think I'd gained a couple pounds there. So anyway, I talked to Beards. I said, you think it'd help if I lose some weight? Because he was like 6 foot, 128, and I was like just under 5'11". I was like 160. And he said, well, yeah, Fish, I think it'd help you a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so then anyway, I kind of went on a diet, Mike, and I kept running a lot of 10-mile runs. And I got down on under 140s, 135 or something. And then I started doing some fasting stuff and running in the morning and afternoon. And I worked my mileage up. Before that, 221, I was only running 80, 90 a week.
Okay.
But 6 weeks before that, I went to Lyle Kloss, who went to down to Lincoln, and I ran 226. And we met this guy, and we went and stayed with him. He said, you should run Grandma's. You could qualify for the trials. And I thought, well, I don't know about that. But anyway, we stayed with him, and it was a little shack, and he didn't have any electricity in his place, and
Oh
so
my gosh, I haven't heard this.
went up there, and anyway, we were sleeping on the floor, and there was these little ground worms or whatever, and when you were sleeping in a sleeping bag, but we had a lot of fun, and anyway, so we go to Grandma's, and then anyway, I thought, well, I got a chance, but I got to be really smart of how I run. I can't go out too hard. And that's kind of how we ran our 229.20. We were smart, and that's how I usually have my better success, by not going out too hard in some of those. But anyway, went out, and I knew I had to average about 525 to break 221.54, which was a standard at that time.
Right.
And so I did that, and we got through 20 in about 148.30 or so. And then my last 10K, I think, was like 32.09,
Wow.
and ended up running 221.09 and qualified. And then after that, I thought, if I start upping my mileage a little bit, I think I can run faster. And so then I started doing more 100-mile weeks like we did in college. But when I worked in college, a lot of the reason why I kind of got run down, I worked the lumberyard 60, 70 hours a week in the summer.
Right.
And so I'd come back and, look like I should be playing football. It took me a couple of minutes to
lose
trim
the
down
muscle. Yeah.
lose the muscle. But anyway, I wasn't doing any of that, and so I was just doing running, and that's all I was doing. I'd run twice a day. I'd moved to Sioux Falls, lived in an apartment when I was at Home Federal Savings Bank,
There you go.
and I'd run like 7 in the morning, and I'd run like 10, 11 in the afternoon. But I was hitting a lot of miles, and I hit 130 a week average for 6 months before the trials.
There, that's what I was wondering. I knew you were putting in a lot of miles, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I know you went on and ran 223, and it's still the course record of Brookings to this day. Later in '79, so I don't know, you're kind of training through that one, but the Olympic trials in 1980. So help me out here, Randy. You ran 229 at Topeka back in '76.
Yep.
You mentioned St. Louis was a 226. Was that your second marathon?
That was Lincoln. I ran 220.
Yeah.
But before that, I think I ran 230 something, probably the longest day. But I didn't win. This was back in '78 or '9.
Okay.
But once I started dropping my weight, getting my mileage, getting in kind of a little bit of a routine, then my time started dropping for the marathon.
You were consistently low 220s, if not high 219s, because then you went to the trials, and I did some research for 225 people qualified for the 1980 trials. I had ran 220 out at Black Hills, got injured, had I had an injury. 192 guys lined up at the Olympic trials 1980. That's a pretty good sized field.
It was a big
221.54 to get there.
Yep.
And so 192 guys showed up that day. Only 125 finished. So, I don't know if they, dropping out of Olympic trials would be tough because, it's one of those memories you want to be able to tell your grandkids. Yeah, I ran the, and so I don't know if these were, 70 guys dropped out, if they went out hard, or if they just, when they saw they weren't going to be in the mix, they thought, I'm going to save it for another day. You ended up 54th place out of the 125 finishers, way, like in the top third of the field, basically. Ran 2:19.48, 5:20 a mile. So coming out of the Olympic trials, how'd you feel about that?
I was really happy after that. I was kind of excited about doing some more marathoning. So I just kept training, and 2 weeks later I ran the Jack 15 at 5:13 pace.
Okay,
And
I forgot that. Yeah,
because I ran the 2:19.48 at the trials, and then
Grandma's.
2 weeks after that I ran Grandma's. I was kind of like on the Doug Curtis program, but Doug put it to another level because that guy could run 20. He could 10 times, 12 times a year. He could run under 220, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to Grandma's at And I thought I ran pretty smart. I thought I'm going to go for it and see if I can run 2:17. Well, I go out in 5:15, and I held 5:15 pace the whole way till 24 miles, and I was in third place. Um, since they had the boycott of the Olympics, Yuri Bjorklund didn't skip that, but he ran 2:10
Yeah, he
at Duluth,
tough. Yeah.
and then Robert Wallace, he was only a minute ahead of me at 24. But anyway, that last couple miles, the bear jumped my back. I know I was 2:17. I ended up running 2:19 again, 2:19.54, and getting third.
Third place. Well,
So,
Nike came on board around then too, didn't you? I know you had a shoe deal before anybody else got such a thing. Do you remember, how did that come about? Did they call you? Did you? I don't remember.
here's a crazy thing on that, Mike. My roommate at the Olympic trials was a Nike rep.
Ah, nice.
And so, so he said, if you break 2:20, I'll see if I can get you some shoes and get you some gear. And I broke 2:20,
Right.
and then all of a sudden I was getting 12 free pair of shoe a year every week, every month. They'd send me some. They'd send
I
me
remember that.
they send me sweats, and they send me all sorts of gear. And so it was quite a gig, but you had to get faster than that to get money on the deal.
Right.
But anyway, I was getting all those perks for a couple of years, which was kind of nice until I tamed down my training a little bit. But it was so much fun, and I was really blessed to be able to get those opportunities.
We're all very jealous of you, Randy. I want you to know that, even though we liked you, because it's like, dang it.
No.
But I know Virgil eventually got a deal with Adidas. Rob Kinnunen got a deal with Saucony. I got a deal with Brooks. Because it was the early 80s, and a lot of, the shoe companies the running boom was growing. And so shoe companies wanted to have the masses buy their equipment. And the best way to promote their equipment was to let the winners. And so hopefully it's not too egotistical, but if you were winning races and running fast times, and you were, people would see that and go, wow, Randy Fischer is Nike guy, and those Nike, everybody kind of knew Nike's are pretty good shoes, and they sure work good for Randy. And so, and you get your picture in the paper, and you got a Nike logo on your jersey or whatever. Of course, we had to kind of deal with Bob Bartling and the Prairie Strider conundrum whenever we ran races.
Right.
I remember Norfolk, Nebraska, and I'll just do a little more fun. You, me, and Virgil Cheersma went down there, and unfortunately, it was an 8-miler, and it was kind of hilly, and I remember John Ager showed up. And John was out of Kansas City or Omaha or something like that. He was a quality. He was
really good.
He was good, and he took off. And the only person that could go with him was Virgil. And I remember you and I were on a hill with maybe a mile or so to go, and we could look down and see them ahead of us, and they were like dueling. I mean, and John did beat Virgil towards the end, but we ended up, Virgil got second. You and I got third and fourth. And,
Yep.
I remember that was just a great memory. It was a Godfather's Pizza race. And so we all got T-shirts that said Godfather's Pizza.
Right.
I think and Bob was smiling because it was a team deal. And so obviously we won the team deal.
Yeah.
And so, you and I and Bob, we went out to Wall Drug and did the Wall Drug. We went down to Ames, Iowa, and did the Midnight Madness. And I'm going to put some photos up. I have a picture of you and I think, down there at Midnight Madness. And it was hotter than blazes, even though it was dark out.
Yep.
And so, we were just enjoying this 1980, 81, 82, running races about every little town, Salem. And I'll just be honest with folks. So Randy and I would go to a lot of races together. We liked each other so much. We had a hard time racing each other because we tie, if possible. Yeah. We would tie. Sometimes because of the competition, you really couldn't do that because you had to kind of run as fast as you could to make sure you're going to be up there. Yep. A lot of times we'd run different events, because a lot of these small town races would have a 10K, 5K, or a 8-mile, 3-mile. And I'm thinking of Rock Valley, if you remember. You and I went down there and had 8-mile, 3-mile, and you and I finished first and second in the 8-mile, and then we finished first and second in the 3-mile.
Right. Yep.
And I showed up at home with these 2 trophies, and I remember my dad. He goes, well, what's this? I go, well, we did the 8-mile, and they said for the entry fee, we'd already paid it. We could do both races for 1 entry fee. And you and I were like, well, 8 miles. Okay, that's done. We had like 20 minutes before they had to wait for all the 8-milers to finish before they started the 3-mile. So you and I jumped into that. So we each got like 2 trophies that day. And my dad said, "You greedy guts." He goes, some poor high school kid might have gotten that trophy in the 3-mile after you guys, kicked butt in the 8-mile. But no, you had to take the 3 miles, and he didn't. I just said, we just out there having fun racing. I don't think we ever avoided, we could talk races, days when John Sinclair showed up, and we didn't know who John Sinclair was.
We found out quick.
Yeah, in Hawaii days. And you and him went and dueled in the 8 mile. I bailed and I ran the 2 mile because I wasn't in very good shape. I think I was coming off an injury or something like that. And I thought, well, Randy's going to win the 8 and I'll win the 2 and we'll both be happy. And I remember you got beat like by a minute or something. And I thought, well, who the heck is this John Sinclair guy? Come to find out, he's a stud. Ran like a 4:10 mile in Colorado at altitude. And then went on to be a world-class racer.
He was All-American in cross country that
he
fall
was a stud.
before. He was top 25
in
Division One.
We didn't know it at the time.
No.
So he took off. You were with him, and it's like, I don't know how that guy ever broke Randy, because Randy's in pretty good shape. But now we know how that, nothing
he was
against
good.
you. He just was like.
He was good. He was
unreal.
really good.
So, we could keep playing the marathon game. How many marathons in your career did you run, Randy?
I actually finished 54.
Wow. I saw you in maybe the 30s, up to 30 to 40, but 54 finishes. Yep. Most of them were all of them sub 3?
Well, yeah, they were all under sub 3. I think towards the end when I was like 39, I had a rough race. It was 258. But however, I did break 220 twice during that time. And then I looked back and I was under 230 30 times.
See, that's consistency. You and Doug Curtis kind of remind me of each other. I've gotten to know Doug. He lives here in the same town I do, and we had lunch the other day. And the guy was just so consistent. And like Dick said when we talked to him, a race director could bring him in and know he's going to get a good race out of Doug because he didn't have too many bad ones. And I think the same could be said for you. If you showed up, people were like, well, Randy's not just here for a training run. He's not just going to run through this and treat it. I'm going to switch because we're going to run out of time. I look back, Randy, and I wish we would have known a little more than what we did. Did you ever get a chance to use goo or these electrolyte drinks that they have now? I remember I feared drinking water, and we can talk about races where if I got a slurp of water in just to wet my throat, that was about it. And then you get to 20. I got to Black Hills Marathon. I was on 2:18 pace, and the last 2 miles took me I was over 6-minute miles instead of 5:20s anymore.
I got it.
Yeah, and so could you imagine if we would have had a goo that didn't exist? And people could try orange slices. That's the last thing I wanted to stick in my mouth.
I agree. No, I stuck with water because it was safe.
And yet, our energy levels would start to dip, and when
right.
Man, when your brain says, "Hey, enough's enough," in that wall. And so I always wonder, if we would have had a little bit of opportunity to be a little more knowledgeable nutritionally. The training wasn't the issue. The equipment was the best we could get in the day. And now they have the shoes, and I don't know if you want to kick in your thoughts. I wish we would have had carbon-plated foam shoes or whatever they are. That it's kind of like inflation, though. We all make more money now, but things cost more. So all these runners are running faster times, but they're all it's like our 220 might be worth a 215, 216 today.
Seriously, it could.
Yeah, I think, Rod DeHaven, I know Scott Underwood's talked to him on more than one occasion about what do you think your times would have been, Rod, if you would have had the shoes? And Rod ran 2:11:06 or something, I think, at Chicago one year or something. And I have no doubt, and I think Rod's done the math. He's kind of a smart guy. He'd be down in that 207 range and things like that.
Easy with this
and
speed.
10K, would be another 30 seconds faster at least.
I agree.
And so at first it bothered me. But then it's like, no, they're competing against their own with, I just like a level playing field. Now, if you're comparing times, it's not fair, because a bunch of guys, hey, you and I think are still top 10 on the all-time South Dakota marathon list. But, there's going to be some young guys coming up. And not to take anything away from them. But they're going to run some sub-220 marathons and boot us up off the list. And that's
easy.
Good for them. Because you still don't run that fast, even with the shoes, unless you just unless you do the training.
No. We had a lot of fun, Mike, and to us, it was a great career. It was a lot of fun, a lot of friendships, and that's kind of what it's all about.
It
But
is, the
we just
journey.
we loved it. It was fun.
We're getting late here, but Brad, kind of to close, how'd you wrap up your career? Mine, I got injured bad in 1991. I ran a half marathon in Dickinson, and I'd done well, and yet my knee was just so bad, and I was 34 years old, and I had to kind of pull the plug on running because of just physical maladies. I went to cycling, and that's a whole other story. But how did your career, if you said, well, I was pretty competitive up until, was there a point where it's like something changed?
About 39 is kind of where I ran my last marathon, and after that, I did something to my leg or hip or something, and I'll be honest, I ran into Frank Shorter at Riverboat Days one day, and he got me into a dock out in Colorado, and they did MRIs, they did gait analysis and that kind of stuff. Couldn't find anything. I went up to the Twin Cities, all that stuff. I went through the whole gamut, and never did really figure out what was going on. The funny thing is, Mike, no pain. I have no pain. It's just my gait isn't what it used to. So now I take my dogs for walks. I go for bike rides, but not competitive like you are. But I enjoy doing those things, and I just feel better. It's just to be able to exercise is just a gift.
It's a lifestyle. And you and I think probably in college talked about it. I think people used to say to us, well, when you guys get older and your knees are shot and you have arthritis, that's what everybody used to say, then you're going to regret this. And I don't know about you, but when I was like 18, 19, I couldn't even fathom being 55, let alone 67.
No, I know.
And if I had to go back, I wouldn't change a god darn thing.
No.
All of these things that you and I have just been talking about.
No, it's been a real journey. It's been fun. And, the funny thing is I don't have any pain and never had a surgery or nothing like that. So I was very lucky.
Yeah. And you had a great career, 54 marathons. All right. Well, Randy, I hate to say this, but we're going to pull the plug. It's 45 minutes. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I wish we lived closer together. We probably do this on a regular basis.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that we're going to think about after we click off here that we could have told.
Sure.
And some of them we probably should never repeat. The Dale Tribby, the Scott Webbers, the T. Eisler, all these guys that used to come down to our dorm rooms and hang out. And
great memories.
Great memories. Well, thanks again, and I just want to thank all our listeners and everybody's out there listening to this. And if you check us out on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays, give us a like or a comment. Randy Fischer, keep up the good work. You look like you're about 49 years old now, so whatever you're doing, is it plastic surgery? What is it?
Well, I don't know, Mike, I appreciate it. It's just been awesome being on a guest with you, and it's been keep up the good work. You guys are doing good stuff.
I appreciate that. Dick definitely sent his best. He said, make sure you say hi to Randy, and so I want to get that in here. So, Randy, you have a great day, and I look forward to chatting with you again sometime.
That sounds good. You and Dick, keep up the good work. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.